Can you explain who AQ-Khan is and what your involvement was in dismantling that program?
Sure. AQ Khan, Dr. Abdul Qadir Khan, was a Pakistani metallurgist. He had his PhD in metallurgy from the University of Delft in the Netherlands. And after college, after he got his PhD, he went to work for a company called Urenco. And Urenco is an acronym for the Uranium Enrichment Corporation. And it's a consortium of the Dutch, the British, and the Germans. And they got together to develop very sophisticated ultracentrifuges for the enrichment of uranium for nuclear power plants. And so Urenco has plants in the Netherlands and Great Britain and Germany with these very sophisticated designs. Well, he had seen India, Pakistan's mortal enemy, detonate a weapon either in 1970 or early 70s. And of course, he was very concerned as a Pakistani that now Pakistan's mortal enemy had nuclear weapons and they didn't. So he offered to steal the designs from Urenco for these centrifuges and bring them back to Pakistan. And the Pakistani government encouraged him to do it, and so he did that. And by the early 1980s, they had a full-fledged uranium enrichment plant at a place in Pakistan called Kahuta, and they named it after him, Khan Research Lab, or KRL. And then they were able to get designs for nuclear weapons from abroad. And he wasn't the designer himself, but he was basically supplying the fuel for the nuclear weapons. That was all for Pakistani domestic use. But what we didn't know at the time is that he also had reached out to Libya and offered to basically make a turnkey enrichment facility for them and to supply them with nuclear weapons designs. And if you remember, Libya in the 80s and 90s, and even in the 2000s, was a state sponsor of terrorism and a mortal enemy of the United States. And so the program that I led was able to uncover this conspiracy, penetrate it, and ultimately bring it down.
How many years were you involved in this?
Almost 10.
Almost 10 years.
Right.
Wow.
And it was the same yield as the one that destroyed Hiroshima, the designs they had. So, you know, if you can say that your team helped stop the deaths of 140,000 people, I think that's worthwhile.
Was any of the technology that they were using to create this enriched uranium and develop this program, how much of that was taken from the United States?
Absolutely very little.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, none. It was all from this European design, at least for the enrichment facility. And the nuclear weapons design was from another nuclear weapons state, not the United States. So there was very little American, if any, American content to it. I mean, Khan basically knew not to go to the United States for things. So his network, he's a very charismatic individual, very popular. I used to jokingly say that AQ Khan is kind of a combination of, our Dr. Oppenheimer, who led the Manhattan Project, Robert Oppenheimer. He's a mashup of Robert Oppenheimer, George Washington, and Elvis.
What? Oh my God!
He's so popular in Pakistan. Well, he was the father of the Islamic bomb.
Right.
You know, they tested 5 nuclear weapons in 1998, and so they were trafficking. Khan was personally trafficking in a nuclear weapon that would work. They didn't have to test it anymore. It would work, and that was what they were selling to the Libyans. Or what he was selling. I divorce it from the Pakistani government. They knew nothing about it, or very little.
I can't even begin to imagine. I mean, that just goes to show some of the disciplines it takes to do a job like you did. When you say it took 10 years to accomplish one mission, or to achieve one objective.
Well, it was close to 10 years. We started it sometime in 96, and I retired in 05. And so it's about 10 years, 9 or 10 years.
Did you ever come in contact personally with him?
No, but we had people that did.
Wow. So you were recruiting people around him that were involved with him directly, and you were able to gather the intelligence to.
That's it. Yeah.
What have been the implications of taking out that network and dismantling that WMD program?
Well, President Musharraf of Pakistan put Khan under 5 years of house arrest, and he just passed away. Khan passed away, I think, a year ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We also assisted the governments because the network was not just a single network. I mean, it was a worldwide network. We provided, the U.S. government provided expertise to go and prosecute the other elements of the network to shut them down so that this could not be reconstituted. But when our director, George Tenet, he was the one that confronted Musharraf. Musharraf knew nothing about what Khan was doing. In fact, they hated each other, Khan and Musharraf did, because Khan, he saw Khan as a potential rival for power in Pakistan. And Musharraf's gut reaction was to just kill Khan. And Director Tenet said, no, that's not what we want. We don't want asking you to kill the guy.
Right.
So he put him under house arrest for 5 years. And then they clamped down, and then we went to all the governments that the other parts of the network were in and helped basically throw those folks in jail.
What do you think this nuclear threat evolves into, or do you think the threat of actual nuclear bombs, explosions is going to last forever, or do you think that we're going to evolve into some sort of super advanced weapons?
We've gone for almost or more than 70 years without another one being detonated in anger. I mean, the last one was in 1945, so that's 77 years since we've, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and we've avoided war until now. But as I said earlier, the more countries that have this, and especially if they're not stable governments,
right?
If the Russians and the Chinese and our allies, the French and the British have it, maybe and the Israelis, I'm sure, have it. But these are governments that are led by rational people. We may not like them, but they're led by rational people, and they know the consequences if they were to use a nuclear weapon. But the more countries you have, the more chances for some rogue leader or irrational leader to decide to use one. And so that scares me. But I don't foresee a strategic nuclear war between any of the major nuclear weapons powers. We're all, I think, conscious of how devastating that would be.
Yeah.